A very warm welcome to the new episode of Incan Insights. This is your host, Sumit Sharma Samir. This is a Nepal based podcast, and if at all you are interested to listen to global thought leaders and authors from around the world, please subscribe to my channel. Today, my guest is Dr. Manjula Pooja Shroff, the MD and CEO of Calorex company from India. Manjula has been instrumental in founding and managing several premier schools. This includes DPS Bhopal and many other outstanding schools in and around Ahmedabad. Since its inception in 1995, Calorex has become synonymous with professionalism and excellence in schooling. Today, 28 years later, Calorex Group boasts of imparting education to 65,000 plus students across 55 plus institutions and empowering around 4,000 plus educators over the years. The group runs several K-12 schools with CBSE, state and IB affiliation, and several preschools. Dr. Shroff's commitment to the marginalized society and those with special learning needs is evident through her initiatives, Visamo Kids and Prerna, a school for dyslexia. She is a recipient of several awards, including the prestigious Secular India Award from the former President of India, Sri Shankar Dayal Sharma, and the Woman of the Year Award by the American Bibliography Society, North Carolina. With a vision to leverage technology in learning, the Calorex Group has launched Dr. Shroff's artificial intelligence avatar and clone named Maya, aiding in content creation and connecting to a wider range of students and parents. With Dr. Shroff as the brain behind this feat, Calorex has emerged as one of the pioneers in introducing AI to the educational sector of India. Dr. Shroff enjoys writing books as well and has authored a book named Baby Steps to Big Dreams, Essential Conversation for Modern Parents. I have a copy of this work with me, signed by the author herself. Thank you so much for that. And the book remained a number one bestseller on Amazon under the category of family and relationships. It's my pleasure to welcome Manjula ji in my show. Thank you so much for your time, Manjula.
Thank you so much for having me here. It's such a pleasure. And the fact that we are talking to audiences from Nepal is very exciting. Of course, Nepal, for all mountain lovers, Nepal is a very, very important destination. For all the Shiva Bhakts of the world, there is no better destination than Nepal. And my greetings to people who are listening to this podcast, whether live or later. It's such a pleasure to be here. It's my honor to have met you and be part of your show.
Thank you so much. Manjula, I was just wondering, please tell me, when did your interest on field of education and child development really started? When did you think that this is the area that you love most and want to contribute?
You know how we say that our personalities and who we are going to become gets shaped at childhood. So I hail from the royal family of Orissa, and for us, for all of us who grew up in hostels, we were allowed to be educated to the extent of, say, a board exam, like a 10th or a 12th. And then going out to college was very difficult because we were not allowed to go to co-eds. So to us, education was almost as if it's only to make you sort of marketable in the marriage market or make you presentable because you're a princess and you need to be educated. And that was the be end all of education. Somewhere in my little mind, even then growing up and running in the corridors of the palace, I figured out that if I studied enough, I could make a life for myself. Let me not sound like I'm not counting my blessings. Being born in a family which is a royal family I must have done very, very good karma. But to be quite honest, I have a personality of my own. There is an internal calling. And I did think that palace life was for me. I thought it was too restrictive for women. And I've seen my mother grow up in Parda. And few things I learned in my palace life is not what I wanted to do. I did not know what I wanted to do. But you know how decision making is also a process of elimination? My palace life taught me what I didn't want to do. And so somewhere there, the seed of thought came in saying, मैं पढ़ाई कर लूं, then अपने पैर पे खड़ी हो जाऊंगी. And that's why education.
Right, right. Wonderful, wonderful. And what inspired you to write Baby Steps to Big Dreams?
I've been doing education for over 25 years, 2.5 decades now. And I have seen how the world has changed, especially for children in this generation who are growing up in this parallel world. They're growing up in the real world, which is the earth, and this imaginary fake world, which is the internet. And I've seen children get so confused. I've seen children not know real from imaginary. Little children, anyways, live in an imaginary world, correct? They fantasize. They know kings and queens and fairies and demons and all of that. मैं छोटे बच्चों की बात कर रही हूँ, toddlers की. They live a little fantasy world. And then there is another, internet world, which is like a second fantasy world. And the real world is like the last world that they're going to touch. I've seen so much confusion because of the parallel existences. I've seen so much confusion because of the collateral influences that children go through, because today it's a borderless, boundarless world. So without these boundaries, when children are growing up without proper understanding, they are really struggling. And that's why the book is not, I've never claimed that I'm an author or a literary person. It's just really an extension of my passion. My passion called creating a good world, creating the right world for our young children. And so the book was like, can I put some stuff together which can act like a tool to guide parents and educators to create this safe world?
Yeah. So yeah, so that's one. I'm also a father. My son is 9 years old. I can completely relate to what you are saying, and I see kids around me as well. I mean, they are caught up in multiple of universe. They have their own imagination. They are internet, and they have when they go to school, they interact and things like that. I mean, how do we cultivate, that our kids also are imparted the level of knowledge that we had as we were growing up, but at the same time learn the new skills that's required in the modern time?
You know, this time that we are living in is going to be one of the most unique times in the history of mankind. For the simple reason that mankind will never come with such close brush as of AI as today. We are going to be the generation that is alive now, the post-COVID generation, that's going to see AI and humanoids be a part of this world. We, as the world as it exists today, are going to be the first guinea pigs, if I may, to understand the real relationship between humanity and humanoids. And we as adults are going to struggle with that. You can very well imagine what younger children are going to do, and especially teenagers are going to do. And therefore, it became necessary to, gather the wisdom that our faculty has put together. These 25 years has been very rich in documentation. Our faculty has put together case studies. We have, situational analysis. We have documentations. We have surveys. We have, everything on mental health that we, our teachers, have seen, thankfully was documented. And it became a base for me to create this book. And we as educators understand that children are developed in stages. Now if you know that education is age specific, because developmental science says that everything about children growing up is age specific. So biological needs are age specific, psychological needs are age specific, emotional needs are age specific, academic needs are age specific. Having said that, I'm talking about the average growth pattern. Then there will be children who are ahead of the curve and there will be laggers. And you have to treat both of those ahead of the curves and the laggers separately. I'm just talking about the median. And that's where this book came into being, creating stages of development and how do we deal with it. And also, it was important that we brought in parents. You see, because Schooling is a partnership between a teacher and a parent. And unfortunately, there is a narrative going in society that एक अच्छी school में दाखिल कर दिया, then the child is going to grow up and parents are absolved of their responsibility. I needed to bring that conversation back, saying that parents, the real influence of a child is the parent. Everybody is a surrogate influence, including that of a teacher.
Right, right. So just to add on to what you have said, Manjula, is that the kind of the mode of economy that we are living in, the parents are equally compelled and stressed to carry out their own regular work. They do 9 to 5 job, or perhaps some of the others who's doing a business, perhaps they are contributing more time into it, so they have less time for their kids. On the other hand, there's a need wherein parents and kids needs to spend time together, so to sort of develop a richer sort of bond. How do we adjust these complexities as our kids grow and as we move into our lives?
So I'm with you on that. I'm a working mother. I worked the last 3 weeks of my pregnancy, and I worked right after 2 months of my, when my child was growing up. So I've been a working mother. I completely sympathize with that, and we're all careerists, and that's the way it should be. You know, Let me just flip that a little bit, and I'll come back to how we can balance our times. But I've seen mothers, and I mean, how house parenting by fathers is very rare, but I've seen mothers give up their careers because they become parents. And I'm of the personal opinion that it's not necessarily healthy. You know, we have to look at children as a plant growing. And how does a plant grow to its fullest potential? You'll have to give you put it in a pot, you give it water, you give it sufficient sunlight, you give it, card, and you leave it. If you were to stand on its head and direct it to grow in this direction and grow in that direction, no, I'm not saying that parents are doing that, but if you're at home, you sort of over monitor. And I'm not sure how good that is. And I'm going to just leave it as a point of, because I know there are so many mothers out there very conscientious looking after children, and my heart goes out to them because they've sacrificed so much. It's very difficult for them to even get back to jobs sometimes. So I'm going to leave that there, but I'm going to come to the fact that when parents are working, it doesn't take too much to communicate. There are touch points of communication, like a meal together, like spending time evening together, like the weekends. And so I've done the book in such a manner that, if the child is a primary child, like grades, 1 to 5, pick up that chapter and read what is possibly going on in the mind of the child at that time and connect with the child. Emotional bonding is something that we cannot sacrifice. It's not about how much time you spend. It's about what quality time you spend.
Right, right. I think I completely agree with you on when you say that how the quality time we spend. I think there's a shift even in the content that or a dialogue that takes place between parents and kids these days. There has to have some shift because the time has changed, and so what number or percentile of sort of the injection of new technology, they should have a time for that. At the same time, they should have a time for the studies. How should children and parents calibrate this together?
So let me tell you that if we are sitting and doing padhai with the children, as in how homework, that's a great time to talk. One of this, okay, the what to talk is there in the book. I'd like to concentrate on the how. Let's not make it a big deal. Oh, now we have to sit down and talk. Let's never do that. Because the minute you do that, the child is like, oh, am I going to get ticked off? Have they heard something about me? Did somebody say something? Did the teacher? You put the child under pressure and sort of becomes defensive, and there will be no open dialogue. It's in the moments of walking a child to the bus stand. It's in the moment of having, an ice cream together. It's in the moments of, opening the bag saying, "Did you have lunch?" It's in those moments one needs to connect. See, these are our children. We are not going to do philosophy with them. Remember that if our tones are good, if we are well-meaning, and if there's an alignment of, the emotion and the body and the mind, they'll get it. And if you say it in few words, you transfer it all to the children. I mean, if a mother is doing it especially because she's connected to the umbilical cord, she can her whole body will transfer. Spoken words are the least way to communicate any which ways, that too with your children. That's one. And no matter, and there are a lot of hard topics that I've written in the book, and we will talk. And I'm going to remind you to help me talk about preteens and teens. But the toughest of topics, if the underground conversation is lined with love and saying, no matter what, I'm there for you, any conversation is possible.
Okay. So how? What are the approaches for the preteens, as you recently told me?
Let's go launch right into the preteens.
Yes,
right?
yes.
So everybody understands that teens is a very difficult period, and we'll go into teens in a bit. But I've started to pay attention a little bit to the preteens. So teens, as you know, is 13 and above. So preteens को हम लोग गिनते हैं से 10th, 11th, 12th ages, 10, 11, 12, just before they hit. Now, why has that become such an important period? Is because of they are like, how can I say this? They're not even young adults. They are like primary years. Say they've just gone into middle school. They are so impressionable. They are so vulnerable. They are so fragile. And then they're exposed to things like cyberbullying. They're exposed to things like body shaming. They're exposed to things like, children can be very critical in the classroom. It can, psychologically and emotionally, these children go through so much, Sumit, I can't tell you.
True.
And we don't understand them. We don't talk to them. We don't prepare them. We don't explain situations and say, in this situation, you do this. We need to do that as parents and as educators. We need to create simulation exercises for life situations and tell children, this is how you have to conduct yourself. We need to do that. That is a life coach.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and Manjula, before we proceed further, I also have this question for the children who are different, right? Who are different, and then our society, be it in India or be it in Nepal, it's yet to sort of understand them in its entirety, and it's so difficult for the parents to help these kind of kids grow, and then to see how society is responding to it, and to fight every day to to make the kids kind of grow in a way that he or she survives in this complicated world. How should you approach that?
So you're aware that we've run schools for SEN, as we call it, special learning needs children, which are dyslexic children or borderline children, autistic children. They only have different needs. What gets compounded is the social non-acceptance or the social ostracization. And parents go through this so much. So, what we did in early years is we created a school for special learning needs, but we ensured that the children came in the same school bus, wore the same uniform as the regular children.
Okay.
So when they stepped out of home, they were safe. Once they came to school, they were studying in a different environment, but we started to first sensitize all teachers. Because when they would go into class, corridors or sports grounds, the normal children would say, "Tu pagal hai."
Ah, yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
yeah, yeah,
So we started to sensitize. Every year till date, we have sensitization programs for normal children and normal teachers. Mainstream, my bad. Mainstream children and mainstream teachers. Because if the world cannot accept them, their lives already their lives are hard. It becomes harder. Of course, having parents groups for shared strategies, this is working for us. Everything is a little evolution. You go from one place to the other. There's no one strategy that's going to last you a lifetime. So having support groups in parents, all of that we've done and has stood us good stead. Of course, I don't know about Nepal, but in India today, thankfully, we have an inclusive policy, which means the special learning needs children sit in the same classroom. But the dynamics are different, and unless the school is sensitive, unless there's a management that understands the psychological, emotional needs of these children, it will be very difficult.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, there are one or two schools which are sensitive enough to sort of bring in these kind of kids and put them on the same environment. But I think there are a lot of school who doesn't understand this sensitivity. They are yet to come up and understand what does it mean to sort of providing education to the entire society. It doesn't only mean that you provide space to the mainstream students, but also to those who want to be a part of that process, right? So there's a lot of rethinking that society needs to do in terms of addressing this issue. But Manjula, please highlight some tips for the teenagers as well.
Teenage is a very rough period for children. And, in my 2.5 decades of experience, I've been extremely pro children for everything.
Right.
Because if we as adults don't understand the children's world, then who will really?
Exactly.
And we are not supposed to stand here and pass judgment and all of that. We are supposed to stand within them and understand their world and guide them.
Right.
So that has always been my approach. And from that approach, I've always paid attention to this particular need of teenage because, we say that they're riding 7 horses in one go. As in, there are so many psychological, emotional, biological, physiological, intellectual,
Yeah.
so many changes happening in the body
Yeah.
that sometimes they are not able to cope up themselves.
Yeah.
On top of that, it's a period of transition. The children are moving, the teenagers are moving from childhood to adulthood.
Yeah.
So there is this sense of, my voice should be heard, I should be assertive. They're just sort of swinging the other way.
Exactly.
Instead of parents and faculty understanding that, how I'm sure it's similar in Nepal. Parenting in India is very directional, is very dictatorial.
Yeah. Same here.
I know we are from the subcontinent,
Yeah,
so it
yeah,
must
yeah.
be like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very, I told you so, I know so, I'm older than you, all of that, gyan types it is. And they resent it because their body's changes are making them act like adults. So it's a sort of they're coming from this direction and we are coming from this direction, and there's always conflict.
Ah, yes.
And the reason I wrote a parenting book is because I'm like, you're the adult. You're the person who's supposed to understand the situation and avoid the conflict.
Right.
Can't expect a teenager to do that.
Exactly.
Then there are inherent threats in the way children are growing up today.
Yeah.
This is whole thing about gaming. And because I've been, going and talking to parents and principals and faculty all over India, I've heard some drastic situations that have happened because of gaming. A principal in Bangalore shared with me that there's some game called black box thinking or something, which encourages children to strangulate themselves. Take a household, anything that you find in the house, an item, and strangulate yourself. Idea being that you'll feel the blood gushing to your head, adrenaline. And he said that a very bright student was not coming to school, and he said we were leaving messages and messages, and after 15 days, the father came and said that they lost the child to black box. What of a challenge! Now, in the gaming, whoever creates these games so mindlessly, influencing young minds, I have no idea what to say. Right? Then there is another game called like a tooth fairy, the fire fairy, which encourages smaller children, younger children, to stand by the gas burner, light the gas burner, wait all night. By morning, you'll become a fire fairy.
Oh my gosh.
Children have suffered third-degree burn.
I mean, these kind of programs should be stopped. Absolutely. Who allows? I mean,
but where is the statutory? Where is the licensing? The internet is like so free for all.
yeah.
Then there's the dark web.
Yes.
We may not know. Children know how to get there.
I know.
Let me tell you this app called Tinder.
Mm-hmm.
Familiar?
Yeah.
Okay. It's an adult dating app in America.
Mm-hmm.
2024 projections are the number 2 market in terms of revenue is going to be the Indian market for Tinder.
Oh my God.
In India, adult women are not going to be on Tinder. It is the younger children.
True.
That's good. I have some very disturbing statistics. When I read those statistics, my hair stands up. Still, 66 million internet users are from the age bracket of 5 to 11. 84% of teens have their own devices.
Right.
Between 13 to 17 age group of children spend over 3 to 4 hours daily on the internet. And teenagers check their phones over 200 times a day.
Oh my God.
You know what? More than ever, parents have to come into the picture.
Right. Right.
And I say this, all schools are striving to create engineers and doctors. I hate to say it, but that's the goal of a main school, right?
Right. Right.
Everybody is trying to create a doctor, or because that is supposedly the most sought after career. Then how come a musician's child becomes a musician?
True.
And how come a businessman's child becomes a businessman?
Right. Exactly.
If it was not about family influence or the DNA or the chromosome.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, they pursue it.
Right?
Yeah.
So then everybody should have been the science stream students in college, in school, because all the schools are aiming for that.
Right.
Therefore, it's time that parents come and spend that 10 minutes a day or 30 minutes a week, and that's not asking for too much.
Yeah.
It's how strategically you use that time. Other than the time, please hug and kiss your children, and all of that is fine.
Right.
But just hugging and kissing is no longer enough.
True.
Parenting is no longer a natural instinct.
True.
In the age of AI, parenting is a strategy.
Absolutely. Agree.
When should I say what to my child?
Exactly.
How should I say it?
Manjula, that's a very important note. And, I think the time has come wherein parents also need to sort of, manage their time in terms of when they are going to use their social handles, how much are they going to use to spend time on the, social media and all those stuffs, so that, they have a lot of time for their kids. When they have their time for the kids, the kid would also spend less time on the social sites. And parenting is completely different thing right now. It is not the same as we used to have in the past. We were sort of lucky. Our kids will be still more lucky if we understand this whole process. But honestly, thank you so much for your time, for being my guest.
Thank you and God bless you. God bless you.
Thank you.